As in Utah, when I was a boy, everybody knew what a downwinder was. We were the anti-nuclear capital of the world. I was an autistic kid. My father was a drafted United States Marine, an incredible man. I come from an incredible family. My uncle stood on Omaha Beach on D-Day. I grew up on a huge ranch out by the lake. He was a beautiful, incredible person. He was at Pendleton, combat ready, and they were human guinea pig. They were marched into the trenches in Nevada. They're called atomic veterans. He nearly died at the blast. Between 1951 and 1968, we had 300 open-air tests. Well, as different scientists started to write about this, Wallace Stegner was at the University of Utah at the time. I got to know him. Edward Abbey was hanging around there. I got to know him. I got to know all these environmentalists, and I was an environmentalist, and it was a passionate, intense subject matter there.
All nuclear fighters, all hands on deck, all hands on deck, all hands on deck. All nuclear fighters, all hands on deck, all hands on deck, all hands on deck. They'll be calling you a radical. Bloomgate, 311, whatever you want to call it. I call it Pacific genocide, whatever. It's fucking giant conspiratorial across all demographics. All nuclear fighters, all hands on deck, all hands on deck, all hands on deck. They'll be calling you a radical. All nuclear fighters, all hands on deck, all hands on deck, all hands on deck. Bloomgate, 311, whatever you want to call it. I call it Pacific genocide, whatever. It's fucking giant conspiratorial across all demographics. They'll be calling you a radical. May God have mercy on all of your souls.
Nuclear power was evolving. We were promised, oh, this can't happen.
Hey, UCY radio listeners and supporters of the Post-Ignorance Project. This is Lonnie Clark again, sitting in for Kevin Blanche. I got a lot of feedback. People seem to enjoy the impromptu interview we did last week, or on Tuesday, I guess. It feels like a week to me. But anyways, I hope everybody's doing well. I am, again, following up with the post-ignorance theme, and I want to talk to you about these NRC notification events. I encourage everybody to go there. It is completely shocking what we have to live through, the complete neglect and almost intentional genocide that is being perpetrated on the entire planet. It is unfucking believable. You know, I think I shared this with you the last time. I go to these NRC events to just find stuff to talk about because there's so much out there that we are not being told. And in fact, on my YouTube channel this week, somebody said, plutonium is just not that bad. It's about the toxicity is not the worst of it. It's just the proliferation of it. I think people forget that plutonium-239, 16 1,000th of a gram, 16 1,000th of a gram is lethal to mankind, to humankind. 16 1,000th. That's like not even a drop. That's like a little tiny wisp of something. And that is what will kill us, folks. And for people, we have been so groomed and so postured to just accept death that we are not even willing to look at the facts. You know, one of the things that happens here is the facts have summarily been buried as if they don't matter. You know, the nuclear scientists that we have today are not exactly fucking scientists. They're cover-up agents. A scientist actually provides real facts, and they would all be saying, nuclear is really harmful to everything on this entire planet. We ought not to be generating it unless we know how to deal with the waste. Because that's the real problem. I mean, we have that big, gigantic dome out in the right next to the Marshall Islands out in Micronesia. That is a gigantic, gigantic dome that is covered with thick, thick, thick concrete. Has been unmaintained for over 60 years. It is now cracking. And the islands and the Marshall Islands are only 7 feet above seawater. So what will happen when the sea rises, which inevitably it will over the next 5 to 10 years? What will happen is not only will the Marshall Islands be gone, but that big sea vault that's cracking will be leaking summarily. I mean, the crimes against humanity that have been perpetrated It is, honestly, it really does remind me of sexual abusers. I mentioned this a couple weeks ago because, we've been groomed and we have been really, really groomed to just accept the abuse, just like small children. I mean, I come from a family of abusers. My parents had some seriously bad issues. I was the seventh kid of 8 children. And fortunately, I was low enough in the lineup that I didn't get any of it, but I sure saw a lot and I understood a lot at a young age. And I will tell you what, maybe this is why I'm so vociferous right now that I will not shut up. I will not sit down and be quiet because I am not going to accept abuse. Period. Anybody's abuse. And it is an unconscionable crime what is going on in our country. So I wanted to share this with you because as I was looking up these NRC events, I'm kind of going through it. And, missing gauges. I think I had that outrage a few weeks ago. There's another fucking missing gauge from the California Radiation Control Program, the Soils Company, Inc., THE Soils, Inc., Lake Elsinore, California. They haven't got a clue. But this is the interesting thing. Listen to this report. The licensee states they do not remember who picked up the gauge and could not find any paperwork to show the gauge number 5803 had been used after July 23rd, 2014. So they don't have any idea. The licensee states there had been no break-ins at their facility, nor had the locked storage cabinet been tampered with. So this is the second gauge that got taken by somebody who had a fucking key. The gauge remains missing. So what does that mean? Inside the culture of corruption, there's a culture of corruption. Like, this is how deep the fucking corruption is getting. Someone inside the nuclear cartel, someone working at these fucking plants, is stealing these gauges and selling the shit on the hot market, or whatever you call it, the black market. I mean, that's the only thing I can think of, unless they're planning on creating a bomb on their own or, poisoning our population just for the fuck of it, which, considering they work for the NRC, they might be willing to do that. They might be complete Caligulas, so who knows? But that is just such an amazing thing. Like, and this really makes me want to do some research. How many gauges have gone missing? I mean, honest to God, if I did not have to work, I could spend my life just doing researching the crimes against humanity from the IAEA and the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. The way these people twist themselves in a pretzel. I mean, I'll never forget watching Allison McFarland sit in front of Congress and refuse to answer and twist like a fucking pretzel while she goes to church on Sunday and tells Jesus she's a good fucking Christian is unbelievable to me. Like, we actually are documenting, like those of us who are paying attention, we're not dying. We're living, man. We are seriously living. And that's what gives me hope. We're the ones who are living. We're facing the reality. We're looking at what's going on. And inside of looking at it, you know what? There is still a lot of joy to be had. There's a lot of hope to be had. And the hope comes in being aware and waking these. It's not just waking the lemmings up. It is really just about getting them to get off their fucking ass. Like, we really need people to get active. We keep saying that. Kevin and I have been talking about this for 4 years. He's traveling across Europe by himself, a one-man road show, basically. I mean, I think about the documentarian that he met in Austria. That guy, again, another one-man road show. We have 1 or 2 people in every big city, it seems like, who actively engage and make an effort. But seriously? The masses are just going, that's interesting. I mean, I haven't got a clue what it's going to take to wake people up, but check this out. I don't know if anybody's on the East Coast, but Browns Ferry evidently had an event yesterday on the notification date 7/14. So I guess this happened 2 days ago. This is just completely shocking. Browns Ferry had at 1810 Central Daylight Time on July 14th, Browns Ferry Unit 1, 2, and 3 initiated actions to commence a reactor shutdown to comply with technical specifications, blah, 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 due to concurrent losses of A and B control bay chillers. Now, this is where we really need someone like Shane Russell on the phone right now to tell us what these control bay chillers do, but we can imagine it's not good because they shut the fucking thing down. This resulted in a loss of cooling of Units 1 and 2, shut down boardrooms. Required actions for the loss of the cooling of Unit 1 and 2 4 kV shutdown boardrooms are to declare the electrical equipment in the 4 kV shutdown boardrooms inoperable. The declaration of inoperability of the equipment supported by the Unit 1 and Unit 2 4 kV shutdown boards resulted in technical support LCO 3.03 for Units 1, 2, and 3. Wow. Technical support LCO 303 requires action to be initiated within 1 hour to place the affected units in Mode 2 within 10 hours, Mode 3 within 13 hours, and Mode 4 within 37 hours. So it has been 37 hours, folks, and we don't see any notification again. We wonder if it's in that state, the state of Mode 4 now. I mean, this shit doesn't even hit the news. We don't even know about it. We don't hear it on the radio. We don't hear it on the television. In the news recently in the last couple of days, because we have had the Director of Homeland Security, who we're really going to listen to, this is how pathetic it gets. The Director of Homeland Security came on the radio, at least here in the Northwest. We've seen him on a couple of television stations, telling people to be afraid, be very afraid, because they know that the Juan de Luca earthquake fault is extremely active right now. We've had over 108 earthquakes in the last year, or so they say, little minor tremors, which show gigantic movement, and they are anticipating an 8.0 or greater earthquake anytime soon. And one of the things they're saying is that if that happens, we can anticipate, no electricity, a complete shutdown of the system for at least 6 months, and not one word about the nuclear cartel, not one word about the catastrophe that will happen to the entire rest of the fucking country from Hanford and the Columbia Generating Station. Now, the Columbia Generating Station is sitting right on top of an earthquake that the licensee knew about when they built the nuclear power plant. They refused. They basically, what they call it, an omission. When the Oregon Physician for Social Responsibility hired a geologist and he was looking into the earthquake faults at the Columbia Generating Station, because the government would not do it, they basically said to themselves, that, they were just going to hire someone to go do it. I apologize. I got a little bit distracted. You know what they found? That the licensee at the Columbia Generating Station omitted the fact that they knew about it was being planned on an earthquake fault, directly on an earthquake fault, a large earthquake fault, 15 miles away from Hanford. They built the Columbia Generating Station on an earthquake fault 15 miles away from the Columbia Generating Station. It is actually a complete shock. This is our government, folks. This is who did this, who made these decisions. 30 years ago, who was running the show in those days? Who made those decisions? Who allowed them to build there? Why is it that, Browns Ferry looks like it has been shut down, a reactor shut down. They're commencing a reactor shutdown. We're not even fucking told. Browns Ferry is in a very populated area. In fact, the whole fucking East Coast is just, honest to God, if I lived on the East Coast, I'd be looking at these NRC control events every single goddamn day. I mean, as it is, we live right up here in the Northwest. I live in the Northwest in Eugene, Oregon. And honestly, the urgency to get the Columbia Generating Station shut down is urgent. Now, you know why we can't get it shut down? Because of Patty Murray. Patty Murray's dad worked at Hanford. In fact, she just worked very diligently to get Hanford declared a national monument. So Hanford is recently, I don't know if it's been passed, but that was her bill to create it as a national monument. I think I actually read that it did pass. So Hanford is 15 miles away from the Columbia Generating Station, which is sitting on top of an active earthquake fault in a zone where it looks like the earthquake activity is big. The Homeland Security advisor said, hey, you guys, you're due for a gigantic earthquake. We can see it coming. Hey, don't tell us. We know it's coming. We can feel it all around the Northwest. We get these little tremors. We know it's coming. So what does that mean? You know what happens to the Columbia Generating Station? If the Columbia Generating Station had a nuclear meltdown for at least 2 weeks, nobody could get near the spent fuel pools at Hanford. If those spent fuel pools, which are maintained 24 hours a day, if nobody can get in there to maintain them, they could, in theory, explode. The catastrophe that could come from the Hanford Columbia Generating Station catastrophe would dwarf even fucking Fukushima. The shit that's sitting out on Hanford is a 400-mile Indian reservation that they kicked the Indians off of. Basically, they took over their lands and said, you're fucking moving out. We're building this here. Now, and it's right on the mouth of the Columbia River. And in fact, Chuck Johnson was saying that they used to have the plutonium processing plants right at the river. They've moved it off the river, but there's a huge dam right upriver from the Columbia Generating Station. So if that dam actually breaks during an earthquake, I mean, the Northwest, I think I heard this, I saw a presentation from the Hanford Challenge folks. There are people actually engaged very actively in the Northwest attempting to get the Columbia Generating Station shut down immediately. But we have the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. It has such force. Patty Murray will not allow it to be shut down. She likes the $80 billion that comes into her state. Maria Cantwell, the same with the senator up there. These two senators, really, they don't even give a crap about their family. I mean, it is just completely shocking what happens. When you come across greed being the actual motivating factor, I believe. These people feel like they're helping their state by, there's nothing we can do. It's already here. No, we can shut down the Columbia Generating Station. In fact, all of these nuclear power plants need to be fucking shut down. Every single one of them. So they're telling us that the Browns Ferry nuclear power plant shut down and there are not rolling blackouts in that area. Because none of these fucking nuclear power plants matter. It's all a big fucking lie. They do not provide electricity in a substantial amount to any area in the country. It's all a lie. It's all one big lie. And that's, in fact, why they don't want to talk about it. Because if you start talking about one little bit of event, then you get these nosy reporters who start digging and start wanting to ask questions. And even in the mainstream media, you get people who can't help but ask questions. And they get kicked off the television or the radio. And eventually, they start asking about nuclear. Their jobs are over. I mean, this is how firm the Nuclear Regulatory Commission and the IAEA, they have complete control. I mean, they fucking chased Kevin out of Switzerland, for fuck's sake. Like, really? They're going to chase one little tiny person out of the country and tell him he can't protest Chernobyl? Why can't he protest Chernobyl? Like, what's the fucking, like, that's the outrage. We can't go to Europe and protest Chernobyl. The people in Chernobyl have been victimized beyond anybody's wildest imagination and still going. It's still ongoing, folks. It is not over in Chernobyl. Just like it's not really over at 3 Mile Island either. 3 Mile Island still has victims. I mean, it's unconscionable. What are they going to do when all those little children in Japan start dropping off like flies in 3 to 5 years? I mean, what are they going to say? They're just going to become... I think the Japanese government will just adjust their population rules. We're going to see that their actual numbers, they're going to start lying about their populations. Instead of saying people died, they're going to adjust down what their population rate was. I mean, I guess that's what his story is. His story. They make it his story instead of the real facts. It's an unconscionable thing. And most Americans in this country are just like, wow, that's really bad. That's so bad. I don't know how we're going to deal with that. Well, we don't deal with it until we get off our asses and start dealing with it. And really, this radio show is a call to action. And not just, right on, you give me courage. No, you have to have the courage and do it afraid, for fuck's sake. You think we're not all afraid? I mean, we have to do it afraid because, we don't actually have a position of power, folks. We have to just face it. What gets back to me how I started this radio show, talking about abusers. You know how I made it through my childhood? Is I just did. I mean, I dodged the bullet in terms of the abuse, but I sure saw plenty of it. And you know what it taught me? Is that you can get through it. And not only that, you don't have to just survive. You can be a thriver. And that's what we're going to do in this issue. And this is why we share information about curcumin and turmeric and cumin and vitamin C and nutrition and health and staying active and refusing to get sluggish, refusing to just stay stuck. If you're stuck, unstick yourself. If you're afraid, keep walking. It doesn't matter. It's okay to do it afraid. That's one of the big lessons in life, isn't it? Just do it afraid. It doesn't matter. We have to do what we know is the right thing. And the right thing is sticking up for humanity, sticking up for Mother Earth, sticking up for every little tiny creature on this planet against the people who are willing to kill them. That's what the nuclear industry is. They are nothing but murderers. They have been murderers. They came out of the Nazi regime who experimented on human lives. They're still fucking experimenting on the human life. And the cowardly United States military uses weapons because they're afraid of their own fucking words. They are scared shitless. And instead of having the courage to really be courageous and end the war machine, they continue to sell arms to people all over the goddamn world and encourage them to kill each other. We now have 12-year-old children killing people. I mean, can you imagine being a 12-year-old child soldier? Actually, you know what? I can imagine that because that's how I felt like. I felt like I grew up in a fucking war zone. I did grow up in a war zone. I'll just tell you that straight out. And you know how you survive a war zone is you decide you're going to. And you decide that life is worth living and if there's more out there than what you're seeing before you. I mean, we all have an innate knowing. And we all have an ability. And it's up to us to find the ability. We're here on purpose. This is not an accident, folks. I mean, life is an accident, but there's no accidents. I mean, we are intentional. I really believe that the universe has put us here on purpose. Kevin Blanche and I met for a reason. That's what I think. I mean, out of all the people in the whole fucking world, I picked Kevin Blanche. That was kind of an interesting thing because Kevin Blanche is not the kind of person I would talk to in my normal life. We don't agree on several issues, but you know what we do agree on? That life is worth living, that we love our families, that we are going to survive. And you know what? This is why I really love the Post-Ignorance Project. It's about being post-ignorant. It's about accepting the fact that, you know what? We've just been fucking blind. Like, I've said this many times. I grew up right next to the San Onofre nuclear power plant and thought it was a fucking observatory. I mean, so I'm definitely post-ignorant now, folks. And this is my goal, is to make the rest of the world post-ignorant. Once you know about the lies of the nuclear cartel, you are post-ignorant. And there is no getting back. And there's no point in wallowing in helplessness, because we have a lot of power, unless we choose not to use it. You know, I read an article yesterday on Facebook about how catastrophic it is still at San Onofre, and it is still one of the biggest threats to the West Coast. Of course, the article didn't mention the fucking Pacific genocide that's going on. It's ironic how people talk about these nuclear issues on the West Coast and don't even mention fucking Fukushima as if it's non-existent. I mean, they're not even reporting the dead whales anymore on the radio, on the television. They're just not even talking about it. The dead sea life that's washing up on the shore is just like, it's washing up. I guess that's global warming. It's an unconscionable thing, folks. Look, I don't know what the answers are, but what I do know is that we all need to keep putting one foot in front of the other and decide that life is worth living. And decide we want to live and we want to enjoy our lives and respect each other and treat each other with love and kindness. You know, right now our country is slathering itself up with a bunch of like stupid fake stories. This bullshit about the Confederate flag. I guess they played that game for about as long as they could bleed it for 2 weeks to keep people from talking about the TPP. Now they've got this fucking fake story about Planned Parenthood, accusing Planned Parenthood of making money when all it really does is get reimbursed for the cost of transporting medical tissue. And you know, it's bullshit the way people attack organizations that actually help humanity. I'm dumbfounded. This country has lost its way so far. The corruption. Just check out the NRC. There's corruption inside the corruption. They're stealing fucking gauges. Somebody inside the NRC is stealing gauges. And what are they doing with these gauges? They have nuclear. Every single one of these missing gauges. Since I've been reporting on it, I think we've counted 4 now in just 2 short weeks. 3 gauges in 1 week. There's another one missing this week. And I have not checked every single day to see how many gauges are missing. So, I guess, what are they doing? They're taking the radioactivity that's inside those gauges and selling it? That's the only thing I can think of. Why would you steal a gauge? And it has to be with somebody who actually has the fucking key. And they're acting like it's not even an issue. Like it's no big deal. If we were to talk about it, they'd call us conspiracy theorists. It's a conspiracy to talk about the crimes that are being perpetrated against humanity. That's the conspiracy. I guess that's the code word when they call you a conspiracy theorist. It means you're speaking out against the crimes against humanity. I mean, fucking Dick Cheney ought to be fucking in jail. That guy is one of the worst world's criminals. He has done more to destroy the world, not just the United States of America, but the world. And he probably gets a fucking hard on thinking about that. Probably gives him a big thrill thinking about that. How he is being called the most evil person on the planet. He probably loves it. But you know what? Him and his little cartel, they are among the top perpetrators of harm on our planet. I mean, these war profiteers have just, it's unconscionable. You know, when we're kids and we're learning about history and we read about how civilizations collapse, you cannot imagine it in your head. How does a gigantic civilization collapse? What happens? Well, folks, we're watching it. This is how it collapses. We're sitting in the middle. We're at the beginning. We haven't even begun to see it fall. It's starting, but it is not collapsing yet. It's beginning to crumble. The chips are chipping away. But, you know, what they say, the last 2 days was Jade Helm Day, I guess, you know. And I guess that's part of the program. You know, the exposed, there was TPP documents that were leaked that said the primary focus of one of the things that they're going to do is, get rid of dissidents, get rid of journalists, get rid of anybody who asks any questions, anybody who tries to organize against the TPP. So the fascism, that's what all of us knew that was inside the TPP. That's not any, but what that requires when you're cracking down on dissidents, when you're cracking down on journalists, is it's the people who are doing it. Who are they going to get to do this? Strangers? I mean, these are human beings killing each other human beings. I mean, at what point are the people who hold the guns going to refuse to pull the trigger? We have war profiteers making so much fucking money, it's unbelievable. The nuclear cartel is just a fucking fat, beyond fat cash cow. Fucking that guy up in Oregon State University, he gets a $10 million fucking dollar check from the federal government the first year after he graduated the university. He's a millionaire. Effectively, he's running a corporation worth millions of dollars. A private corporation, of which he's probably 100% owner, maybe 50%, maybe 30%. $10 million, folks, right out of college. Where does that fucking happen? Nowhere, except the nuclear industry, who's raping everything on this planet. The entire planet is being raped and pillaged by the nuclear cartel. And it is a complete outrage that people do not think this is the primary issue that we have to deal with. So let me remind you again how toxic this bullshit is. Because honestly, it's stunning that people do not wrap their minds around it. Strontium-90 has a half-life of 30 years, lethal at 70 millionths of a gram. Strontium-90, 70 millionths of a gram, folks. 70 millionths of a gram. What was the becquerels that they allowed up in Canada? I mean, honestly, 7,000. So this is where we need a science person, someone who can translate the 7,000 becquerels into 70 millionths of a gram. I wonder if 70 millionths of a gram is equivalent to 7,000 becquerels. That's kind of a science question that I actually haven't got a clue. And I do plan on asking Shane Russell because I think he understands all of that stuff. The Post-Ignorance Project is about identifying what we don't know and being honest enough to tell the truth. And when you discover you don't know, you look into it. You get off your ass, you do your research. So I guess that's what it means. By this time next week, I'll have done my research and I can tell you whether 70 millionths of a gram, what is the equivalency to that, to 7,000 becquerels, allowable units in the water in Canada now. Thank you, Dana Durnford. I mean, it is unbelievable that people are allowing our entire planet to be killed by the nuclear cartel. And then I get messages on my YouTube channel that says, well, you can't have it both ways. It's either toxic or it's not toxic, but it's really about the proliferation. It's not really that harmful. Yes, it is, folks. It's really, really, really harmful. And the damage it's causing to our planet is going uncounted. There is no science. We're living in scientific la-la land right now, where the scientists pick and choose what's science. That's not science. Science is a decision to have integrity. And the science that we have now is not science because there's no integrity. To put the words safety and nuclear in the same sentence are completely opposite words. I mean, you cannot have nuclear and you cannot have safety in the same sentence. Nuclear is not safe. Nuclear is harmful to every single living thing on this planet. Man-made nuclear radiation is in fact the most lethal element ever discovered by humanity. And in fact enough to probably be causing a extinction level event. And so what does that mean, an extinction level event? It means Within 100 years, there won't be enough people to be able to reproduce. Well, I talked about this a few weeks ago. Fitness in science means your ability to reproduce and your ability to survive. Well, some of us may be able to survive what's happening, not what's about to happen, what is happening. But how many of the people that will survive will actually be able to reproduce? People don't realize that, but sterility is one of the biggest problems that nuclear causes. It harms babies in utero and it causes sterility, period. There is nothing they can do about it. They can't change how the nuclear radioactive nuclides affect our DNA, destroy and damage our DNA. They cannot control it. So instead of just, stopping it, they're just letting it get completely out of fucking control. They are still doing nothing about Fukushima. And in fact, I don't know if any of you ever watch this, but the Fukushima Daiichi newsfeed on YouTube is completely gone. We haven't seen anything for 3 days. And in fact, we haven't seen anything since the 14th, the same day that Brown's Ferry was shut down. There are so many events that we are not even told about. We're on a need-to-know basis, and we don't need to know. And they'll just let us fucking just drop off like flies. That's not good enough for me, folks, and I don't think it should be good enough for you. We actually need to get actively engaged. And whatever, I say this again and again, whatever it is you think you can do, fucking go do it. Don't sit on your ass. Call up Thomas Ackerman. Get in touch with us. Ackerman has a really great plan with the free radicals to bring the art in community into this Fukushima awareness thing so that we can, we start waking people up through art. It might actually reverberate through the cultures. Why do you think that the Bush administration allowed the oldest museum in mankind's history to be destroyed? That was the first thing they did when they went into Iraq. They pillaged and raped the Museum of Baghdad. Why did they do that? To destroy history. His story. His story. They're creating a story, folks, and we're their little fucking playthings. They think we're still their little pawns. The only way we can avoid doing that is refusing to fucking participate with these rat bastards. We cannot just be silent. We have to talk. You have to speak out. In order to stop the abuse, you must speak out against the perpetrators. Call them out. Stop protecting them. And frankly, once they're called out, it is imperative that we forgive them. They need to be justly punished, but as long as we remain angry and hateful at them, it poisons our lives. The only way we're going to survive this is to stop the fucking nuclear cartel and get over it. It's taken them 60 years to destroy what life on this planet has created in millions of years. We are now in the 6th extinction level event, and mammals are dropping off at a faster rate than any other prior extinction level event. And why? The nuclear cartel. No one's even fucking talking about it. It's just unconscionable that nobody talks about it. You know what? There is a number here. If anybody is listening to my voice and wants to call in and engage with me, you can dial 718-717-8296. And if I hear the phone ring, I'll answer it and we can engage on this. Let me give you the phone number again. It's 718-717-8296. So if we hear the phone ring, I'll answer it and then we can engage on it. But I'm going to keep going because, we cannot just passively allow and continue to passively allow it and just twiddle our thumbs and say, what can we do? Well, we have to think of all kinds of things to do. And I personally really love the idea of protesting outside of nuclear power plants. I think it gets us out. I remember last year, I forget the woman's name, but she was out at a nuclear power plant with signs that posted up how many miscarriages she had, how many children she had, they had gone through. And that's really what we need to do. We need to talk about these things because it does cause miscarriage. It does cause sterility. The boys in the Pacific Ocean surfing away right now are all going to be getting cancer in 5 to 10 years. And there isn't anything we can do about it because they're already exposed. It's like all those dead fish, the dead whales, all the dead little sea creatures that are just washing up. The sardines have disappeared. Everything has disappeared. Every single thing has disappeared on the Pacific coast. And they're calling it global warming. Yeah, it's fucking global warming. It's called Fukushima warming, man. That's what it's done. Fukushima is, you think that Fukushima is not heating up the ocean on Balco? You think it's not making the methane at the bottom of the ocean warm up? People need to not just wake up. I think people are awake. At least people listening to this radio show are awake. And what we really need to do is actively engage. You know, it's not enough to wake up, folks. You have to get out of bed. You have to make a plan. You have to go do it. You know, we work diligently. We're not just asleep. We're somewhat in a trance. And it's an intentional trance. And it's an intentional trance to cause us to just give up hope and not actively engage. You know, I was listening to a television show while I was working last week, and the guy was, I don't know, it was some famous guy, I don't even know who he was, but he was talking about how he's in love with mushrooms because mushrooms are all over the planet. Mushrooms kind of interpret the toxins in the planet, and they help create the new life. And I thought that was kind of a curious thing because we know for empirical knowledge that in New Orleans, they used mushrooms to absorb the toxins that were given out by the oil company. And we also know that in Fukushima, they're using mushrooms to absorb the radiation on an experimental level. But the mushrooms seem to be able to interpret and absorb radiation. And maybe that will be our answer. I mean, I guess this is me just grasping at straws. You know, I want humanity to survive. I want life on this planet to survive. I want the nuclear cartel to just be, you know, put to an end. But, you know, I know how that goes. I grew up in that type of a family. The only way those types of abusers end is when they die. So the nuclear cartel has got to kill itself, and I think it is killing itself, frankly, along with the rest of us. But, you know, we have got to be prepared to survive and thrive beyond the nuclear cartel. The damage that they've done is going to be ongoing. We are, as Thomas Ackerman coined, we are now in the age of fission. And most of us don't even understand what fission means. You know, what's the difference between fusion and fission? Well, my understanding of fission, and when I have Shane Russell on, I'll confirm it, but my understanding of fission is that the radionuclides just keep automatically splitting. They keep getting bigger and bigger and emitting energy and just grow and grow and grow. This is why the nuclear contamination is such an unmitigated, uncontrollable disaster. Because they don't know how to stop it. Look at Chernobyl. Chernobyl has been going on for over 30 years and it is not fixed. They might have put a sarcophagus over it, but the one that they put on it collapsed. And then they put a new one on and it's beginning to collapse again. This is a catastrophe. I mean, Russia does not talk about the shit that goes on there. They keep you want to talk about fascism and totalitarianism? Welcome to our world in China and Russia, man. Those people will not talk about it. And you, just like in Japan, you know, you start talking about it, you go to jail. And I think that's what their plan is. That's what the TPP showed us, you know. That's their plan, to put any... And, you know, why are we dissidents for talking about nuclear radiation? Why are we dissidents about talking about a catastrophe caused by the nuclear cartel? I mean, who deems us dissidents and conspiracy theorists except for the nuclear cartel, the people who have a vested interest in profiting off of killing every fucking thing on this planet? It is not the new way that humanity is going to survive. We are not going to be able to survive everybody getting cancer and then going through cancer treatment. That is not going to happen. We can't give cancer treatments to all the fucking animals on this planet, folks. The only way we're going to do it is to end the nuclear cartel. 100% end the nuclear cartel. This fantasy land, Chuck Johnson said this, and we hear this all the time. This is the speaking point that everybody's incorporated into their little chatterbox brains. Oh, well, nuclear scientists have a way of being overly optimistic. Fuck that. That's not overly optimistic. That's called being a fucking liar and not a scientist. They're not scientists. Over-optimistic scientists are not scientists. A scientist takes the facts, sets up an experiment, looks at the facts, and comes to a conclusion. Period. You can't have optimism inside of that. If you're an optimistic scientist, you're not a fucking scientist, for God's sakes. And that's where we're at. We have a huge fucking industry of greedy, fucking murderous bastards. And that's about what they are. All they are. Catherine Higley, Jose Reyes, all of them. I mean, it's unconscionable that they continue to murder the planet. And the planet just goes, wow, there's nothing we can do to stop it, I guess. We've been pruned. I mean, I guess groomed is the word, folks. I keep using the word pruned, but I guess that's what they're doing, is pruning the tree here. We have all been groomed since the late 50s to just accept a nuclear death. When I was a little girl, they had us hiding under desks. I was in first grade. I'll never forget. We used to have nuclear tests, I don't know, every 2 or 3 months. And it put fear in our hearts like you could not imagine. We were scared shitless, little kids wondering if we were going to really see white rain raining down on us. Our teacher told us what it was. It was going to be white rain. If you're in the white rain, stay out of it. What the fuck? Telling little kids about a nuclear bomb so that they could manipulate the masses to just accept a nuclear death. This is completely outrageous. Look, I hope that next week I plan on interviewing a couple of people. There are some people that I have reached out to that I have not been able to make the connection with. One of them is Thaston Ricklin from the Marshall Islands. He runs our Islands Conservation Center. I'm hoping we can do an interview at least over the phone and get that on to you the next time I'm here. The Marshallese are they are like what I call a window into the world of nuclear victims. Because in the Marshall Islands, people don't talk about the nuclear catastrophe. 3 out of 4 children in the Marshall Islands are still born with birth defects. The children on the Marshall Islands, and there's not very many of them, 30, 50,000. It's a very, very small population, 60,000 people. And so what happens is the money that the United States gives the Marshallese goes to 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 families, but the bulk of the families don't get the money. So many of the children live their lives in close to poverty level on the Marshall Islands. They cannot, in order to get there, many of the children are born with a tumor on their eye. That seems to be a common thing. They're perfectly healthy except they have this big growth on one of their eyes and they can't see. To get the growth taken off of their eyes, it costs them $2,000 or $3,000 just to get to a decent hospital, because the United States never built a hospital on the Marshall Islands. Because they did, what I think, because they didn't want to document how many people would be sick. Everybody would be there. So they've made it very difficult for people in the Marshall Islands to get help. And this is part of what I want to talk about with Thaston, because what's happened to the Marshallese is exactly what's happening to us. There is a taboo against speaking out against the nuclear cartel. People feel resigned as if there is nothing they can do, and it's part of what they have to accept. The United States government continues to deny the level of radiological harm. The victims who are outspoken are considered dissidents, and in fact, Thaston is like one of only 2 or 3 people in the entire Marshallese population willing to speak out. He's the only one he knows here on the West Coast willing to speak out against the nuclear cartel. And as he says, the people in the Marshall Islands don't want to talk about the negative effects. They want to talk about how they've been able to survive post the bomb. They want to talk about the good things. They want to remember their culture. This is why there's a really strong movement among their culture to revive their ancient ways. And it's kind of ironic they call it ancient ways because it only disappeared 50 years ago. So to me, they are a microcosm of exactly what is happening on this planet. And I really want to have a good discussion with Thaston about that. I also want to interview Shane Russell because he has a really great technical mind. I think I'm going to have to make a recording of the interview because he's working while we're doing this. On my list of people that I want to interview, I definitely want to interview Thomas Ackerman again. I definitely want to interview, Miss Milky the Clown, Missing Sky. These are two, if any of you do not know these two women, Missing Sky 101 and Miss Milky the Clown 1 on YouTube, put out fabulous videos that tell us exactly what the nuclear cartel is up to, what is going on at Fukushima. They scout the internet for news stories and compile them and put them in 15-minute bits. Sometimes Miss Milky the Clown or Missing Sky will mirror a complete event that's like an hour and a half long. But it is imperative that all of us get up to speed on this nuclear issue, folks. Anybody within the sound of my voice needs to understand it. Look into, if you're living near a nuclear power plant, go to the NRC alerts and try to scout for your nuclear power plants near you. Because I guarantee you there is some shit going on somewhere near you. I mean, we have the Browns Ferry event going on. I mean, there are missing gauges. There's just so many different kinds of events that these people aren't even telling us. It's not only scary, but it's a crime against humanity. These people need to be held accountable. There is no way that these things that they can continue. They just get away with it. Like, at least Caligula had death. These people get to live in vast riches and are completely unaccountable, while the rest of us suffer at their hands, including their own children, I might add. I don't know how anybody else feels about this, speaking of their own children. But I read in the newspaper yesterday that Poppy Bush fell, broke his neck, and he's in stable condition. That translated into me that we are going to have a nuclear bomb drop somewhere. Of an easy life right now. We are being given the gift of supreme challenges. What that means is that we have an opportunity to really grow spiritually. We have an opportunity to help save our planet. We have an opportunity to make humanity a better species. Unfortunately, it comes on the heels of really hard, utter destruction that is beginning. We're watching the beginning of it. And we can rise up to a greater level of humanity. We can rise up to a greater level, aspire to be better human beings. We do not have to derange ourselves in the self-pity of people refusing to live a full human life. We have the opportunity to live a full human life and to save our planet. It's really important that every one of us take on that responsibility, because for every one of us that is aware and willing to take action, there's probably 100,000 people who don't even know. It's not like they're not willing to take action. They just don't know. What I say, this is a really great sales sentence. You don't know what you don't know until you know you don't know it. And people don't know at this point. They're like frogs swimming around in the pot, and so, oh wow, the water's beginning to get really nice and warm. I'm glad they're heating up the pool. Pretty soon the fucking pot's going to be boiling, and you're going to be too lethargic to get the fuck out. And then well, like that is exactly, we are frogs in a pot of boiling water, folks. And it is time for us to get out before the pot heats up. I always call it crabs in a bucket. This is another. I have all these like little phrases. I basically went on a mission when I was 30 years old to heal myself from my traumatic childhood. I've read practically every fucking self-help book out there. And a lot of it has really great gems. There's a lot of good information out there that can help us be better human beings. That whole phrase of you don't know what you don't know until you don't know it. That's one of them, I mean, we have the opportunity to be better human beings. And it is up to us. And we do not have to stay in the pity party. We can get action, and we just have to have our courage. We have to put our courage feet on. We have to decide to do it afraid. We have to just decide, and the more you do it, the less afraid you get. I personally use tapping, EFT, all the time to help me get through it. I find it makes me stronger and allows me to face it. So I am going to be interviewing Kevin Blanch again soon. I hope to catch up with him in a week or so. And I hope everybody is please dig into your finances to help us complete this trip for the Post-Ignorance Project. We are looking for a couple more $1,000 in contributions to keep Kevin there until September 10th. When his flight comes back. If we can't sustain the donations, he'll have to come back early. We'd like to complete the trip and get that completed. It's a slow slog when you go there and you have, not very strong, firm ties. We meet people over the internet. So also, let me give you my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel is Nuts for Art, NUTZFORART. And, you can catch my videos. I read John Goffman's book, Population Control Through Nuclear Pollution. I support the Post-Ignorance Project. I'm actually part of the Post-Ignorance Project. And we are promoting the free radicals. Now, with the free radicals, we'll deliver the Post-Ignorance Project. We need people to actively engage. If you have no idea what to do, please give us a call and we can do it together. I would personally like to see we organize little sit-ins where we meet people in our area, we get to know them, and we create actions, local actions where we can form little coalitions and petition our local elected officials, local and federal elected officials, and, bolster each other up even though it feels like we're pissing in the wind. Because we might be, but guess what? We might as well just keep trying. Forget the word try. We'll just keep doing it. Until we succeed, we're going to keep plugging at it because we only have one planet, folks. Mother Earth is our place where we live, and we all share it. And I'm not about to give it up to the fucking nuclear cartel. So please do contribute. Go to the postignoranceproject.com Facebook page or Kevin Blanch's GoFundMe page. You can always contribute to us at the Post-Ignorance Project at Gmail on PayPal. And we really appreciate all the support and all the listeners. In the next week, I hope to be having some interviews and moving this thing along, and I will be bringing you some information about the becquerels on the strontium, whether that amount of becquerels, 70 millions, is equal to 7,000. So keep on keeping on. Put your courage feet on. Do it afraid, folks, because that's all we've got. Let's save humanity. Appreciate you listening, and we'll talk to you soon. Calling you a radical.
All nuclear fighters, all hands on deck, all hands on deck, all hands on deck. All nuclear fighters, all hands on deck, all hands on deck, all hands on deck. They'll be calling you a radical. Bloomgate, 311.